And hello, Jets fans, and welcome to another episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you're new to the channel, go down, go click it right now, that like and subscribe button, so you don't miss any of our latest content, and so we can get more Jets involved here on the program. And of course, gotta love that YouTube algorithm. We're trying to get this out to more Jet fans as much as we possibly can. The NFL Combine is right around the corner, but I thought today we'd focus on free agency because we are in a new age for the New York Jets. We have a all-new regime with Darren Muji and with Aaron Glenn. And with a lot of turnover, especially in the front office, you see a big turnover in free agency. And like I've been telling people on this channel, expect the unexpected. There might be players that you really love on this Jet team that might not be a part of the overall vision going forward in 2025 because you have a whole new staff with all new perspective, all new values that are coming in. And to be honest, as a content creator like myself, I tend to pride myself at having an idea of what a front office and coach is looking for. And you kind of get a sense after the first free agency, the first draft, but since we are going into the bid, the unknown, I thought we'd play a little bit of a game here today, and I wanted to look at 10 potential free agent targets for the New York Jets. Now, the Jets will likely have more cap space with the Aaron Rodgers likely to be released probably post June 1st. I'm under the assumption the Jets are going to try to trade Davante Adams. Personally, I would trade him, but that's going to free up cap room as well. We're talking between potentially $60 and $70 million worth of cap. And look, the cap's also exploded $20 million more than most teams were expecting. But just because there is an abundance of money doesn't mean I think that this Jets team, especially in their first year as a regime, are going to go out and spend. There might be one free agent I could see them opening the piggy bank for, maybe one of the safeties in this market. But I do think you're going to see a lot more of mid-tier or role players that the Jets target in free agency. I do think a lot of it will come with the culture and a bit of familiarity to it. But again, guys, if you're new to the channel and you're joining us after the visit, after the live stream, make sure to comment below so you don't miss any of our latest, and I'll answer questions in the comments after the video. And if you're into this live stream, use that super chat to make sure your comment is read and to jump to the front of the line because your donations help create more content for this. So without further ado, let's look at the top 10 potential free agent targets for the New York Jets. And of course, I do think it is very important to look at key pieces. Now, this one might be a little bit rich. Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis has been with Glenn, defensive coordinator. He was they traded from the Buccaneers last season. He was in a career season last year under Aaron Glenn before a season-ending injury in Week 15. You look at his grade defensively, it was his best grades ever, about 75, and his second best coverage grade in a 7-year career. I'm under the opinion that DJ Reed is gone. The Jets have already invested in Michael Carter. I think they're going to heavily invest in Sauce Gardner. But with Davis, this allows you a couple of things. Number one, Davis comes in as someone that understands the coverages in the secondary that Glenn's trying to operate, understands the verbiage, which again is very crucial when you're developing a new scheme. But it gives the Jets a spot starter right off the bat that can help develop. Now, I think Bernard Converse could be a potential guy that could be a starter. Quantez Stiggers has already said he wants to be the Jets' number 2 corner this year. And while I do like the potential of those two kids, I do think you want to hedge your bet, make sure you have a veteran presence in there. And Davis, again, coming off an injury, I think there's incredible value on a couple of these guys on this list. Now, I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes because, yes, there are some red flags on this list. But again, the Jets, I think, are looking for more role players. And importantly, especially in this first year, when you have this turnover, the biggest thing is you want to establish a culture and establish a winning culture. And you want to bring people that have been a part of that culture. And Davis is one of them. Speaking of culture, one of the key pieces on the Jets changing the culture is someone already on the staff, and that's Garrett Wilson. So one possibility is this, going back in the past. And I understand we have talked ad nauseum about the quarterback position. We will talk ad nauseum about options this offseason. I know Matthew Stafford now has the right to look for a trade. But to me, if I am the Jets, I am asking Garrett Wilson, do they feel Justin Fields is a good fit? And if Garrett Wilson signs off on it, I'm going after Justin Fields. Now, again, I don't think Justin Fields is going to blow up the quarterback market like Sam Darnold is. I do think it's going to cost a pretty penny. However, I don't love this draft. I don't think the Jets are going to trade up for Cam Ward. I don't think even it's worth the trade for Cam Ward. And Jackson Dart at 7 is too rich for my blood. I would rather have this team go in next year with Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, and either of the following. They try Jordan Travis for a year, see if he can develop, or drafting a developmental guy day 2, day 3 in this draft. Now, a lot of it's going to come down to this coaching staff and the values, what kind of quarterback they're looking for. And I think we will find out what kind of quarterback they are really looking for. Now, on the surface, I think that they are looking for a more conservative quarterback, someone that can operate the offense efficiently and not make the big turnovers, which is kind of the opposite of what you're looking for with Justin Fields. But if they want to have some big play, have a versatile quarterback that can run around, make plays, and look, do I think Justin Fields is going to become a top 10, top 15 quarterback? No. But is he an athletic quarterback that can make enough plays to win football games, especially if you have a good defense? Yes. So Justin Fields to me is a target, especially if Garrett Wilson really wants him to be here. So speaking of the offense, I went deep into the archives for this one. Juwan Johnson, the tight end from New Orleans. Now, interestingly, this is a deep tie because Aaron Glenn was still with the Saints with Johnson. So I think that there could be a connection here because here's the thing. Tyler Conklin's going to test free agency. He's 30 years old. I'm of the opinion that he's going to try to find a contending team to get this last contract. There's a chance he could come back, but I'm looking at this Jet tight end room. There's a lot. Jeremy Ruckert and Zach Kuntz are on the roster technically. Ruckert, I don't know how this new coaching staff is going to use him. Maybe they see potential in him. But Johnson, to me, is a good role tight end where he's a good number 2. I feel this team's going to draft a tight end in the upcoming draft. Maybe they draft even 2 tight ends. But this allows you to have a productive NFL body in this tight end room and is someone that's not going to cost you a ton of money. I think there's familiarity there. But the biggest thing I look for with this move is it allows you to help develop a rookie tight end and give a good number 2 option and a good veteran presence in that room. Okay, we've talked offense. Let's get back to the defense. On the defense, DJ Jones from the Denver Broncos, previously mentioned as a Jets target. I mean, Robert Saleh had some overlap in San Francisco with him. You look, though, he helped turn the defense around in Denver along with John Franklin Myers. He is one of those guys that can really impact the game and would really be could even be viewed as a spot starter next to Quinnen Williams. I do think the Jets are going to invest, like the tight end room, deeply in the draft on the defensive side, but getting a veteran in there so it's not all on a rookie right up the gut. Now, Jones probably is going to cost a little bit more than some typical free agents, but we saw how bad this defensive line needs interior depth. And to me, DJ Jones would be a nice plug and play guy right off the bat. Sticking with the defense, I have another former face from the Lions, Ifeatu Melifonwu, the safety. He has been coached by Glenn his entire career. He's a converted cornerback. He made the switch to safety ahead of the 2022 season, and he's developed into a nice, valuable piece for this defense. Look, the safety room, the Jets' top 3 safeties are all free agents. And I'm not sure how they're going to look to build this safety room. To me, it would make sense if you bring in Melifonwu, you have him be one of the starters, you draft someone to be the other starting safety on the other side of rookie. I think you're going to see a major overhaul in the safety room. It would not shock me if this is the biggest turnover position of the entire Jets locker room, where other positions you're going to have returners, but this could be one of the positions where there's not a single returner from the 2024 roster. I'd be shocked if that happens, but I can see a scenario where that clearly can happen. So once again, it's another guy that you bring in from a Glenn defense who understands with this defense what they're looking to do, what they're looking to accomplish, what role the safety plays within that defense. And you need guys who can speak the gospel of Aaron Glenn on the defense. And this is another one. And speaking of that, we talked about the back end. Let's talk about the front end of this defense, because I do think that especially the next few are going to be key defensive targets for the Jets. And a lot of them are going to look familiar if you followed the Lions last year. So Levi Onwuzurike, I can never say this name right. He's going to be, I think, one of the top priorities for the Jets. Again, we're talking about the defensive tackle room. This was a position we forget was a strength for this team, but they completely gutted this defensive line. I think it's going to be a priority during the draft and free agency to rebuild. I do think that you look at this, you see Onwuzurike, he's coming off a career year. He's an intriguing option. He's probably going to get a fairly big market in free agency, but this is a guy who can come in right away, play next to Quinnen Williams. Now, again, you worry about the health. A couple of these guys have injury issues, which I understand is worrisome, but this is someone that I could really see being one of the Jets' top priorities to help get a valuable starter next to Quinnen and get another key big body on that defensive line. Now, this next one may be a little controversial, and I know the comments are going to blow up with this probably, but there's a world where Jamien Sherwood does not come back to the Jets. And it's like I said when I started this video, there's going to be moves that this front office probably will make that will be unpopular, and that is when I can easily see. Don't forget, Sherwood is a free agent. Sherwood also has two suitors right away, potentially, with Robert Saleh now back in San Francisco with that defense and going down south to Atlanta with Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator there. I understand he's coming off a career. I would rather prioritize signing him and trading Quincy Williams potentially, because Quincy's going to be coming to the end of his contract next year. But if he does leave, I look at Barnes as someone that could probably be a replacement for him. He's another member of the 2021 draft class. He's played his entire career again under Aaron Glenn. He was a fourth-round pick. He's developed into a very key piece of that Lions defense, a versatile linebacker who can do a little bit of everything. And I think that he is someone that you want to get a key member. I think the Jets' goal is to get a member of the Lions or a key member that Aaron Glenn knows at each level. So we've already tackled the back end. We've tackled corner. We've tackled defensive tackle. The one place we haven't tackled is the linebacking room. So I think Barnes, again, I know it's not a sexy pick. I would rather have Jamien Sherwood, but there are going to be moves and potential moves on this offseason that we as the fans might not like, but I could see this front office and this coaching staff making this. And don't forget, it's an all-new staff. They didn't draft these guys. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh drafted Jamien Sherwood. They developed Jamien Sherwood in that system. There could be a world where Aaron Glenn doesn't see him as a fit in his system. So a couple more as we get to our last defensive target. Shocker, another Lion, Marcus Davenport. This is the only free agent that has played on multiple different teams with Aaron Glenn. He was in New Orleans when he was there. Came to the Lions last year. And look, Davenport at this point in his career has had a lot of health issues. And I understand that. And I understand he was drafted to be Cameron Jordan's replacement. You see the upside when he's healthy. He had a 9-sack season in 2021. Unfortunately, 6 games over the last 2 years. But here's the thing. I think you can take a flyer on him. And right now, the Jets, you have 2 key pieces at defensive end, Will McDonald, and you have Jermaine Johnson. I'm looking at Davenport as being a role player on this team, a potential backup fill-in player, but really, really someone that becomes a situational pass rusher. And with Davenport, look, I don't think he's going to have much of a market. Some of these guys are going to have a bit of a market. I think Davenport's market with his age and with his injury history, I think the Jets can get him for a very cheap price. And once again, in free agency, it's not just about the big, sexy moves. It's about the filling roles. It's about the role pieces that you get. And Davenport, Once again, someone that understands what Aaron Glenn is looking for a defensive end, what they're looking for an assignment. And if the Jets want to draft another young pass rusher, instead of last year where a couple injuries and all of a sudden we're banking on Michael Clemens to be the savior, instead you have a veteran in Marcus Davenport that can step in, be a key role player, and potentially help develop some of these young players in the scheme. So let's get back to the offensive side. It's Tim Patrick is my next one, 31-year-old. Basically, 2 injury-prone seasons in 2022 and 2023. Came back with the Lions last year, caught nearly 400 yards last year at 31. Mike Davenport, I really don't see much of a market, but the Jets' receiving room is so thin right now. He's a big body on the outside. Darren Muji also drafted him, was a part of the team that drafted him in Denver. So I think that you have not one but 2 connections, and I think you can get him for a veteran minimum. I think if the Jets can get a couple of these role players for the veteran minimum or close to it, it allows them to maybe splurge on a flashy safety or splurge on a flashy player. But for me, you just want depth at the wide receiver position because it's Garrett Wilson and not a lot else. And look, I'm not saying Patrick has to be the team's number 2 coming in, but I would feel pretty decent if by next year, if the Jets drafted a player in the first round, drafted a receiver, had Tim Patrick as the number 3, and I'd still look to add a number 4. I mean, that's not a bad top 3. And Patrick, once again, understands this offense, understands how this offense is supposed to be run. And like I said, you want to get key pieces here. You're going to have an only receiving room. You're going to have a lot of turnover in that receiver room. Having Patrick in there as someone that's worked in this Detroit-style system, that understands the route concepts, understands what the roles the receivers are supposed to have, is very important. So I think having him just even next year for 1 year as almost a talking head in that room is incredibly valuable. So the last one is another intriguing one, and I do think it is something to keep an eye on, and it's Darius Slay. Now, unlike Patrick, probably going to command a bit more of a market, 28 years old, 700 yards of receiving in 4 of his seasons in the NFL and over 4 of the seasons. But here's the thing. The Jets are looking for culture guys. Slayton has been noted as being a great locker room presence for the Giants. But more importantly, this is someone that understands the New York market. He has been here in the New York market. He understands what it's like to be on a toxic New York team in this market. And while it would cost a lot more, and I think probably more money than people are comfortable, I think Slayton could be a really nice number 2 complement, at least next season, for Garrett Wilson. And I do think the Jets are going to need to invest in a receiver in the draft. A lot of it's also how this new regime values Malachi Corley. That's going to be something to monitor as well. But Slayton, to me, is someone that, while he will be pricey, he's one of those second-tier receivers. He's not like a T. Higgins. He's not going to be a top-of-the-market wide receiver. But I think he is a solid B receiver that the Jets could invest in. And look, he still has some good football ahead of him at the age of 28. To me, this is a nice fit. It's someone that understands the New York market and someone that understands what it takes to be successful in New York. So those are my potential targets. Looking forward to what you say. And again, guys, help support the channel. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Also use that super chat to go to the front of the line. Also, you have that fun new sticker feature to use in the chat as well if you want to make your voice heard. I don't see us spending big money on a cornerback too. I agree, Wild Wave. That's why I'm looking at them trying to go more of a veteran minimum or close to it. I would say that you're correct. I think there's going to be certain positions. Safety is a position I could see them spending some money. Defensive line, potentially, depending on who it is. But I agree. I think corner, if you had to put money on it, ironically, I think corner is the one position the Jets are not going to invest money in. Someone mocked Barron to us at 7 earlier. That Brett Hoffman guy, that's too rich. Even if Barron is a stud, yeah, I think 7 is too early for Barron in terms of mock draft. But I might be dropping a mock draft tomorrow. First one of the 3-rounders. So again, guys, mock draft Monday. Keep an eye out for it. I like Juwan Johnson, not bad. Hopefully he would be productive. He has a tendency to phase out of games. But the thing with Johnson, though, is I'm not saying him to be the number 1. I'm definitely looking at him to be a role player coming in this year, Ruckert was viewed, I think, by many of us as being the tight end 2 on this team, and unfortunately, it didn't work. I think that would be my goal for him. He's not going to be the number 1 tight end. He's more of the number 2 tight end. Now, whether you draft the guy to be the number 1 tight end, you target someone else to be the number 1 tight end free agency, Juwan Johnson, to me, he's more of a role piece, if that makes sense to you, as opposed to being the number 1. Barton is definitely on Glenn's radar. So, bro, all these signings should be post-June 1st. We can keep our comp picks. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. You have to sign him because there's 31 other teams that are going to be looking. I also think some of these defensive guys, don't forget too, you have Ben Johnson in Chicago. You wonder how many of these especially the defensive guys, how many of these guys he's going to look to bring in. Because much like Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson's trying to reestablish a culture. And in order to do that, it makes it a little bit easier when you have players that have worked in your system and players that have been there. I think, like we were saying with the free agency, I could see him targeting some of those defensive guys. I could see him targeting some of the offensive guys. I mean, now again, Detroit also has some free agent offensive linemen. They're more backups at this point. Could I see the Jets maybe investing in one of them to be a backup? I know they had Connor McGovern last year. I think that's one thing I'm very intrigued with. I think for the most part, we know the Jets have 4 of the 5 offensive line spots set. Right tackle, corner Connor Hughes, likely Morgan Moses is gone. I kind of understand why, because I do believe he's going to want to play for a contender. But at the same time, I do think it's going to be curious to see how they address the backup position. And again, I'm a bit of an offensive line nerd. I'm not afraid to admit that. But I am very curious to see how they view Carter Warren, how they view Max Mitchell. Now, again, they brought in Connor McGovern at the end of last year, see what kind of role he could play. Is he a veteran that maybe this staff wants to bring back? I'm very curious to see also what kind of an identity they look for on the offensive line, what kind of guys they bring in. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, too, if maybe the Jets, they don't address the top 4 starters that I mentioned, but maybe instead they adjust and look at the backup positions. Maybe they just look at Carter Warren and say he's never going to work in our system and move on from him this offseason. There's a lot of little things like that we have to keep an eye on throughout this offseason because once again, with an all-new regime, there can be a lot of turnover. And again, like going through my list, and again, guys, you can go back through that and check it out at any time. And again, if you're joining us after the live stream, make sure to comment below, talk about some of the free agents you would like to see the Jets target. These are really, again, a lot of these names are not sexy names per se. To me, they're more of filling holes. They're about addressing depth. They're about addressing key positions that the Jets are thin at, and they're about establishing a culture on both the offense and defensive side of the football. Now, if they fill a lot of these holes with these guys, then maybe it allows them to spend a little money on a wide receiver potentially. Maybe it allows them to overspend on a tight end in free agency. Maybe it allows for a safety that falls through the cracks or a pass rusher that falls through the cracks that they can spend a little money on. I do think that the Jets, I'm not saying that they're going to be completely frugal this offseason, but they're going to be facing still a lot of dead cap. And I don't think that the Jets are going to want to start off this regime by putting themselves in a bad cap situation. I think they're going to work through a lot of the cap situation, but you're still going to have a lot of dead cap. You're going to have Aaron's dead number. You're going to probably have CJ Mosley with some kind of dead number at the end of the season. So even though the Jets are going to open up a lot of cap space, they're still going to be dealing with a lot of dead cap through most of this season and at the start of next season. I mean, if the Jets do what's likely speculated, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a June 1st, but split, that means they're going to save $14 million this year after June 1st, but that means $35 million against the cap next year. Now, looking forward, it seems like the Jets made the right decision because the cap jumped $20 million more than people were expecting this year. And if it jumps that number again, too, it will definitely help alleviate the blow of that really difficult contract. Because, again, it is difficult when you have a dead cap number like that to negotiate. But I do think that the Jets are going to be, again, fill a lot of holes in free agency. I don't think they're going to get if they get one or two flashy quote free agents, that's the most I'm expecting. You have a new regime, you have a new staff that's going to be all about building the foundation and building the culture, which again, for a lot of Jet fans, I think are on board for, but there's also the frustration of, oh, great, here we go again. We're rebuilding and we're starting from the ground up, which again, I understand. It is incredibly frustrating as Jet fans. But I'm also of the opinion I would rather miss the playoffs this season and build something and be competitive every single year than just have a one-year aberration where we end the playoff drought. And yeah, that's great. But then you have 3 or 4 years because you went all in on that 1 year and you just screw yourself over. Are people just speculating that we love Cam Ward? Because the combine hasn't happened yet. And that's where everything goes down. So a couple of things, Wild Wave. I think there are a lot of assets to this. So let me give you my thoughts. I do think the combine is very important. For me, the combine is more about the meetings with the players and the medicals. Now, again, the show is the 40-yard dash. It's, the weightlifting, it's the drills. And yeah, for us watching as football fans and for the TV, it's great. But that's really the fluff to the combine. The combine is more about meeting the guys in person, seeing what type of people they are, and more importantly, like you said, kind of gauging with the other teams. I think a great thing from the Hard Knocks offseason was you saw at the combine last year. The Giants were a great example where they went over to the Patriots room and they basically started engaging and saying, hey, are you thinking about trading out of 3? Because at this point, you're right before free agency. You're kind of lining things up where if you believe you have the chance to get a great young quarterback, you're probably going to be looking at more of a 1-year veteran in free agency potentially than maybe investing 3 years in a quarterback. I think it will be very telling if the Jets sign Justin Fields, what kind of contract they give him. Now, again, I don't think it's going to be a huge money deal, but they give him 2 or 3 years, might say something. I also think, too, it's a very slow combine, which is last year, there's a lot of excitement because you had the quarterbacks, you had the big 3. And then there was all the speculation, well, where's Michael Penix going to go? Well, where's Bo Nix going to go? Where's J.J. McCarthy going to go? Where in the first round are they going to go? Are they going to be in the first round? Who's going to trade up for them? And then it was, okay, we know Caleb's going 1. Is there a chance May goes 2? Does Daniels go 3? Does a team trade up for the Patriots at number 3? There was a lot more speculation where this year, the quarterbacks, let's be honest, they drive the narrative. And you see this every single year where the quarterbacks get pushed up and pushed up. And one of the popular things is easily the Jets because they need a quarterback. They're looking in the draft for a quarterback. So all of a sudden now you keep hearing, the Jackson Dart. Oh, Jackson Dart. Oh, Spielman was huge with him, with the Vikings, talk glowingly about him and how great he was. But instead, I get the feeling it's more of there's just a lack of quarterback commitment. Because you look at the top of this draft, you have 3 teams in the first 3 picks that really need a quarterback, and they're all kind of about it. You have the Titans who are basically saying we'll trade out of 1. So they can pick any quarterback they want, but they're willing to trade out. Then you have the Browns at 2, and God knows what the Browns are doing. Are probably going to take a quarterback, but now they're right now trying to figure out the Myles Garrett situation probably first before they even think about what they're doing at 2. And then you have the Giants at 3, and the big story with them isn't, trading up or, looking at a young quarterback. It's, Matthew Stafford's available. Maybe they pull the trigger on Matthew Stafford, get Matthew Stafford to New York. So I think kind of then, what happens after that? You look at 4. Well, the Patriots aren't taking a quarterback. You look at 5. Well, Jaguars aren't taking a quarterback. You look at the Raiders at 6, and like the Raiders, don't have a lot of buzz. I mean, they have Pete Carroll, but they don't have really a lot of buzz for the quarterback. So then what's next? It's the Jets. And you have the Jets saying they're 7. And of course, it's easy to speculate. Oh, they really like the quarterback. And I do think you can like Cam Ward. I'm not even opposed to trading up. I'm just not trading a Godfather offer to go up and get it. The one thing I would say about Ward, and I brought this up, I believe, in the last live stream or the second. So again, for continuity purposes, I trying to just make sure I have covered my bases. If the Jets believe that Ward can be a really good quarterback, and they're of the opinion that with him and with the roster they built, they're going to win 8 or 9 games next year. But what that does is takes them out of the running for one of the quarterbacks next year. Maybe it makes sense to go in and get the quarterback this year. But that's if Ward falls or the Titans give you an offer where you're like, okay, the Jets couldn't turn that down. I would say this, I'm not giving up a few next year's first round pick, though. If it came back that the Jets had to give up 2s, like this year's 2 and next year's 2, and maybe a 4, again, that's a bit pricey, but they didn't give up a first round pick, I might consider it. I might. I don't know how I'm going to feel if the Jets give a Carolina package to get one. I don't think it makes sense with this regime to do that. The Jets right now are not desperate. They're a new regime. They don't have to get the quarterback necessarily this year. And I'm of the opinion that there are intriguing options in the draft. But once again, the quarterbacks drive the narrative. The quarterbacks drive the ratings. The quarterbacks drive the bus that is the NFL draft. So what's going to happen is, I can tell you, Jackson Dart's going to have an impressive pro day or have a great combine, and that's going to push him up the board all of a sudden. Then you're going to see Jalen Milroe, who's got the small hands, the inaccuracy at the Senior Bowl, did not look good at the Super Senior Bowl, but he's going to put up combine numbers, and they're going to be electric, and they're going to blow people out of the water, and then people are going to be like, well, look at him compared to all these other great quarterbacks and the physical measurements. He's got to be considered. There's no quarterback in this draft that I am giving up a boatload of picks to get. If you were to tell me they could get Cam Ward without giving up a number 1 next year, but maybe it's 2s and a 3 or a 4 somewhere in there, I could stomach it. It would still be painful, but I don't see them giving up multiple 1s to go up and get Cam Ward. Because here's the thing. If they, in a world, do that, he's their guy. They have made it abundantly clear that not only do they think he is going to be a good quarterback, they think he's going to be a great franchise quarterback. And the thing with the AFC is it's different than the NFC. Because the NFC, we've seen, you can win with great rosters and good quarterback play. Just in the AFC alone, you have to find a quarterback that you feel gives you a chance to win against Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, against Joe Burrow. And I haven't even mentioned quarterbacks like Tua. I haven't mentioned quarterbacks. Again, I think that is the upper echelon, but there's still other good quarterbacks. There's Tua. Drake May could be a very good quarterback. I think he's got a lot of the skills to be a very good quarterback in this league. And then you have Bo Nix, who had a very impressive rookie season. I mean, I haven't even mentioned that, but I basically gave you 6 or 7 quarterbacks who are great quarterbacks. And here's the problem. There's only 7 playoff spots. And realistically, it's hard to not see those guys in the postseason. So I understand the desperation to get a quarterback and how we want to address the position. But I think free agency will be very telling. If the Jets overfill holes and look at a roster and say there's not a lot we really need in the draft, then maybe that's their sign that they're going after a quarterback at the draft. But they sign a Justin Fields or they get a young quarterback that can play like that, I think they're telling you that, yeah, we might draft a quarterback. If gun to my head, I would say the Jets draft a quarterback round 2, round 3, round 4 before at 7 or trading up. The one caveat, so no one can play this back and say that I'm misleading. I can see one scenario, one, where the Jets, Wild Wave, trade up for a quarterback. And that to me, it would be if Jackson Dart or one of these developmental quarterbacks is sitting there late at the end of the first round. And the reason you do that is because if you believe they are a guy, it is worth it to give up that draft capital. Because what is the difference between a first round quarterback and a second round quarterback? It's the fifth year option. And that is key. If you think they're going to be a guy, it makes sense to get that fifth year option so you can push paying him down the road an extra year, or it gives you at least an extra year of more financial flexibility if you hit on the quarterback. Because we've seen it with the round 2, round 3 guys. Some of them that look pretty good and they get to that contract, and then you get to the end of the fourth year and it's like, oh, now they either have to franchise them, which is a boatload of money, or they have to pay them outright. So that is the one scenario. So like trading up in the first round for the quarterback, I could see it. I just don't see it from 7 to 1 or 7 to 2. I see it more from the second round to pick 30, pick 31, pick 29, pick 32, where the Jets get back into the first round because they say, look, we have, even if you have a high second round grade on a quarterback, go and get him so a team can't jump you at the top of the second round or at pick 32 to draft the quarterback. Make sure you get him, but also gives you that fifth year flexibility. That is the one scenario I could see. But we have a lot more draft content coming, guys. Tomorrow will be our first official mock draft. Now, I'm going to also let you know, and I will give you a little bit of a precursor to it. I do full 7 mock rounds, but I don't do it until the end of free agency because especially day 3 is a lot more about filling holes. So I will give you my 3-round mock draft coming tomorrow from Mock Draft Monday, how I see the Jets attacking it. Now, again, this is the first one. I think it becomes more clear after free agency. Holes are filled. We see what are more pressing needs as we enter the draft. But I will give you my initial 3-round mock draft tomorrow. That will be coming out. We can debate it. We can talk about it. But today we went over our top 10 potential free agent targets who I think really fit in terms of their price point, in terms of being good in terms of the culture, and fitting what this coaching staff is looking forward to do. Did you agree with these guys? Let me know in the comments. If you disagree, let me know. If you have any questions or ideas for future videos, make sure to comment them after the live stream, and I will respond to all of those comments. And check out our community page so you don't miss any of our interactions there. But once again, if you're new to this channel, like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our New York Jet content because we have a lot more on the way as this offseason progresses. Thank you so much for joining us here on Rich Sports Talk. Let me know if you like this now on Sundays, this format on Sundays, because again, we're missing football. This isn't exactly football, but it gives us the chance to talk football. Let me know in the comments if you want more Sunday content. If you would also like to make a donation, use that super chat feature to make a donation to the page so we can continue to expand the Rich Sports Talk brand. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm your host, Owen Rich, and this has been Rich Sports Talk. We will see you next time.